Up stuff that I want to do on information that they have at the end of the chapter on listening. Your book talks about the techniques of active listening. And I want to kind of clarify a little bit on the techniques of active listening. We've really already talked about this, but I want to clarify a couple things. Your book talks about the techniques of active listening. And in one of those sidebars, it gives you 3 techniques of active listening. Asking questions, reflecting back the speaker's meaning and feelings of meaning, and paraphrasing. And those are very, very good techniques of active listening. But I want to emphasize that those are not the only techniques of active listening. A technique of active listening is defined as anything that you do, you as an individual, you as the individual student, anything that you do to help you listen more effectively. Anything that you do that helps you listen more effectively. So when I talked about the speech-thought differential and techniques that you have developed over time, a lot of times you don't even realize you're doing these things. But when you're in a difficult listening situation, when you go to that algebra class or whatever it is, and you have to get that information, you need to know that information, there are things that you do, behaviors that you've developed that help you listen better. Some of those techniques may have happened before that listening context, that listening situation. Before you came to class today, there may have been things that you did that help you listen more effectively in this class. Drinking a Mountain Dew for caffeine, getting breakfast, going to bed early last night, whatever it was. Those are techniques of active listening. If it helps you listen better, it is a technique of active listening. So I don't want you to think that those 3 are the only techniques of active listening. In fact, on your test, do you have it?
What?
On the essay, listening portion of the test, did I ask for 3 or 4 techniques of active listening? 3 or 4? So I'm not. 4 techniques of active listening.
Yep.
That I see. I'm not lying to you. Chelsea's got the test right in her little hands, her grimy little hands. I'm going to ask you for 4 techniques of active listening. There's 2 ways that I can think of to get that wrong. There are 2 ways for you to get that question wrong on the test. You can give me any of the 3 that are in the book. I don't want ask questions. I don't want reflect back to the speaker. And I don't want paraphrasing. They're great techniques. They're very effective. But I don't want those 3. Anyone can copy them from the book. What I want, I asked for 4 techniques of active listening. I want you to think about 4 things that you do as an individual. 4 things that you do that help you listen more effectively. Now, like I said, you have these behaviors. You have these techniques that you've developed. They're in the back of your mind. They're subconscious almost. You don't even think about it. I want you over the next day to move them to the front of your mind. Think about difficult listening situations that you've been in, classes that you've taken, meetings that you've gone to. Those types of things that are difficult, but you really need to listen. What do you do that helps you listen more effectively? If you tell me that helps you listen more effectively, I can't mark it wrong. That's what I meant when I said there's only 2 ways that you can get it wrong. You can give me any of those 3 that are in the book, or you can leave it blank, and you'll get it wrong. But if it helps you listen more effectively, that for you, that's a technique of active listening. Okay? So you'll have to think about that overnight. What do you do that helps you listen more effectively? My whole objective is to make you aware of that. So when you encounter a difficult listening situation, when you're going into a difficult listening situation, you'll know. You'll be aware of what things you do that help you listen more effectively. Those are techniques of active listening. Or effective listening. Active listening. One of the techniques that they talk about in the book is paraphrasing. And paraphrasing is a very, very powerful technique very, very effective technique of active listening. Paraphrasing. They mention it a lot in this chapter. Paraphrasing is repeating back, and this next phrase is very, very important, repeating back in your own words your understanding of the message. Repeating back in your own words your understanding of the message. Repeating back in your own words your understanding of the message. The reason I said that phrase, in your own words, is very, very important. That's what makes paraphrasing effective. For you to repeat back a message in your own words means that you have to process it. You have to think it over. You have to rearrange it and put it in your own words. So it helps with remembering. It helps with understanding. Very, very effective technique of active listening. Repeating back in your own words your understanding of the message. Now, don't confuse paraphrasing with what we call echoing or parroting. Echoing or parroting. Now, echoing or parroting can be a technique of active listening as well, but it's a lot more limiting than paraphrasing is. Echoing or parroting is repeating back exactly what you heard. Paraphrasing is repeating back in your own words. Echoing or parroting, like the bird, a parrot. Echoing or parroting is repeating back exactly what you heard. Now, echoing and parroting can be effective if we're talking about content information. Remember content and relationship information? Echoing and parroting can be helpful with content information. Content information, you remember, is facts and figures and numbers and data and percentages. In other words, if someone gives you their email address, you want to make sure you got it right. You don't paraphrase it back. You repeat it exactly how you heard it. Or a phone number, or a password. You would parrot it back. You repeat back exactly what was said to you. And it's helpful with content information, but you don't have to do a lot of processing. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to remember it, comprehend it. With echoing and parroting, you're just repeating back exactly what you were told. Paraphrasing, you're repeating back in your own words. Now, there are three functions of paraphrasing that you need to know. In other words, there are three ways that paraphrasing is beneficial. Three functions of paraphrasing. And these are kind of long, so I'll go slow with them. Three functions of paraphrasing. And it'll be on the video. We're still rolling, right, Kelsey? Mm-hmm. So if you want to go back and make sure you get it in your notes. Three functions of paraphrasing. These are things that make paraphrasing so effective as a technique of active listening. The first function of paraphrasing is it gives the speaker an opportunity to check the message. It gives the speaker an opportunity to check the message, to make sure they got the message right, that they encoded the message properly. It gives the speaker an opportunity to check the message. So if I'm in class and I say to you, okay, tonight we're going to test over chapter 3, and you say, whoa, wait a minute, we're going to test over chapter 3? I thought we were on chapter 7. And I say, I'm sorry, I just had a brain freeze. I just said the wrong thing. When you paraphrase that back to me, whoa, wait a minute, I thought we were on chapter 7. You said, we're going to test over chapter 3. When you paraphrase that back to me, it gave me a second to check. No, I'm sorry. We are going to test over chapter 7 tonight. When you paraphrase it back to me, it gives the speaker an opportunity to check the message. Number 2, under functions. Paraphrasing gives the speaker an opportunity to check the feelings and emotions communicated. It gives the speaker an opportunity to check the feelings and emotions communicated. Gives the speaker an opportunity to check the feelings and emotions communicated. Check the feelings and emotions communicated. So you come out of class tomorrow, and you guys are all walking down the hall together, and one of you is just going off about that last test. You just blew that last test. I hate this class. I hate this is awful. And you're just griping and groaning, but you blew that last test. And one of you, a classmate, paraphrases back, man, you don't like that class. You don't like that instructor at all, do you? You're paraphrasing back. That's just what they said. They just said that. And it gives them a minute to think, no, it's not that I don't like the class. I'm frustrated with myself. I didn't watch the video. I rushed through it. I didn't take my time with the test. It's my fault. I'm just frustrated with myself. That's not what they said. They said they hated me, they hated the class and everything else. But when you paraphrase that back to them, it gives them an opportunity to kind of do a survey, check, inventory is the word I was looking for. Make sure that that's not what I was meaning to say. It gives them an opportunity to check their feelings and emotions. It gives the speaker an opportunity to check their feelings and emotions. And the third function of paraphrasing, remember we said since chapter 1 that both people, the speaker and the listener, have a responsibility in the relationship, have a responsibility to make sure the message was communicated as it was intended. Well, number 3, the third function of paraphrasing helps with this shared responsibility. Number 3 is it gives the listener an opportunity, now an opportunity to check their understanding of the message. Maybe they didn't decode it properly. Maybe they got mixed up. It gives the listener an opportunity to check their understanding of the message. Gives the listener an opportunity to check their understanding of the message. So you said we're going to take test 7 and 8 tonight? No, that's not what I said. We're going to take 7 tonight and 8 tomorrow night. You just heard me wrong. You got mixed up. It gives the listener an opportunity to check what they heard, what they thought they heard. So those are the 3 functions of paraphrasing. Why paraphrasing is such an effective technique of active listening. Okay, a couple of definitions that I want to get in. Your book mentions back-channeling cues. An effective listener is very sensitive to back-channeling cues, is willing to use back-channeling cues. An effective listener is willing to use back-channeling cues. Get this definition in your notes. Make sure that you have this definition in your notes. A back-channeling cue is a type of feedback. A back-channeling cue is a type of feedback. It's almost always nonverbal. A back-channeling cue is a type of feedback. It's almost always nonverbal. Where the listener sends information back to the speaker without exchanging roles. Back-channeling cues are a type of feedback. They're almost always nonverbal, where the listener sends information back to the speaker without exchanging roles. You send information, the listener sends information back to the speaker without exchanging roles. Back-channeling cue is a type of feedback, almost always nonverbal, where the listener sends information back to the speaker without exchanging roles. And this class is an excellent example of back-channeling cues, or illustration of back-channeling cues. You want to get a message to me. You want me to know something, but you don't want to stand up and say anything. You don't want to speak out. I'm going too fast. All right? Does that ever happen? I'm giving notes and I'm going too fast. So what do? Wait a minute, I can tell by your nonverbals that I need to go back over it, that I need to slow down. Those are back-channeling cues. You send that signal to me that I need to slow down. Those are called pacing cues. So think about the kinds of messages that you send to a speaker without exchanging roles. These are the types of back-channeling cues. They are agreement, disagreement. I say something and you agree with me, you kind of nod your head, smile a little bit, or you disagree with what I'm saying and you make a face and shake your head. Agreement, disagreement, understanding, or lack of understanding. And I can tell by the looks on your faces if I need to give another example or I need to go over it again. Did you understand that? I said it's going to be on the test. It's not in your book. I can kind of tell if you got it or not from your facial expressions, your eye contact, those types of things, even some gesturing. 3 is interest. Or lack of interest. This class has been very, very good with this, and it's hard, these summer classes, to stay focused and to stay in tune with what's going on. But you guys have been very courteous and very respectful in the class and have shown interest most of the time. Or you could show lack of interest, where you're on the phone texting or whatever, you're reading something else, you're sleeping. So through back-channeling cues, we can communicate interest or lack of interest. And then the 4th one, and I just said it a minute ago, what was it? Or said this, do you remember what kind of cue that is?
Pacing.
Pacing cue. Yeah. Those are the 4 types of back-channeling cues. Pacing cue is slow down. Whoa, I'm trying to get this in my notes. Or, okay, we got it. We're not stupid, move on. Those are pacing cues. Pacing cues. Those are the 4 types of back-channeling cues. Do you remember iMessages? That was a verbal chapter. Chapter 6. iMessages are referenced again here in chapter 7. That was chapter 5. iMessages are referenced again in chapter 7. Do you remember what an iMessage is? Absolutely, when you take responsibility for the message. What they say in this chapter is that a good listener, an effective listener, perks up, really pays attention when they hear the speaker using I messages. When the speaker is saying I a lot, remember, I messages show ownership or responsibility for the message. What you're saying, this is mine. I'm not blaming someone else for this. I feel this way. This is what I think. Those are I messages. They show ownership or responsibility for the message. What your book is saying is that the effective listener, when they hear that speaker saying I, using I messages, they perk up. It must be important to that speaker. If they're saying I should pay attention to this. I really need to listen to this. Because it's important to that speaker, obviously. The book references I messages again. I just want to make sure that you have that definition in there. Just 2 other terms. Your book uses the term empathic listening, empathic listening. Have you ever heard that term before? Empathic or empathy? Heard that before? What's the difference between empathy and sympathy? Or does it mean the same thing? What's sympathy?
You can actually understand because it's happened to you before. You can put
Which one's that?
Sympathy.
Okay.
Sympathy is like well, I know empathy is you can empathizing with somebody is saying, you know what, that must be hard. You may not have necessarily been in that situation that other person.
Okay. So then what's sympathy? Okay, let's go back so we don't get confused. Empathy, you're on the right track. Empathy is understanding. That's a good key word. And we'll keep that up there. Sympathy involves feeling sorry for someone. Now, empathy, you have to be really careful with empathy. And I have problems with the book's definition of empathy. The book says that empathy is putting yourself in someone else's shoes and feeling what they feel, feeling as they feel. I have trouble with that. Empathy, according to the book, is putting yourself in someone else's shoes and feeling what they feel. I don't like that definition. I don't think it's very practical to us as effective communicators and effective listeners. I think we can harm the relationship. We can cause some misunderstandings and hurt feelings by assuming that we can feel what someone else is feeling. People are pretty protective of their thoughts and feelings. They don't like someone else saying, I know exactly how you feel. No, you don't. You can, as you said, maybe if it experienced something similar, but that's not what the book's saying. The book's saying you feel what that person, you put yourself in their shoes. To me, being an empathic listener means that you allow for the emotion. You realize that the person is emotional. Whatever those emotions are, it doesn't matter. You realize that the emotions are there. You understand that the emotions are there, and you allow for those emotions. We're going to talk an awful lot about that tomorrow. Emotions have a huge impact on the way we communicate with the people around us. The empathic listener allows for that. They understand that. An empathic listener is very forgiving. They don't hold grudges because someone said something when they were upset or said something when they were excited. The empathic listener allows for that. They're very forgiving. They're very understanding. They don't hold grudges. I think that's a lot more practical than saying to feel what someone else is feeling. Yeah, exactly. And misunderstandings and miscommunications. I had a student come up to me a couple of years ago. We had reviewed for a test, getting ready to take a test on Monday. This was when we had Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes. Friday after class, she came up and she said, Ms. Burlew, I'm not going to be able to take the test on Monday. I'm not going to be ready. And I said, what do you mean you're not going to be ready? She said, well, my divorce becomes final this afternoon. I'm just not going to be ready on Monday. So I'm sorry, I understand. I said, you're going to be upset and everything. And she said, upset nothing. I'm going out partying this weekend. I thought I was being an empathic listener, feeling it, and I was completely off base. We can't put ourselves in someone else's head and feel what they're feeling. You make those assumptions and you see what happens. So sympathy is feeling sorry. Empathy is understanding. Empathic listener allows for the feelings and emotions. They're very forgiving. They don't hold grudges. Mindfulness is the last vocabulary term. And I think this is where you're going a minute ago too. Mindfulness is behaving logically. Listen, that sounds kind of silly. Listening logically and rationally.
Can you say that again?
Mindfulness is listening logically and rationally. Having an open mind, attempting to understand the message with an open mind. It's listening logically and rationally. The best illustration I've ever heard for this came from a student when I was in class talking about this. I had a student, one of my favorites, we still keep in touch. It's been 20 years ago, we still keep in touch. He is completely blind. And I was talking about this in class, and he raised his hand and he said, I've got the perfect illustration. It was, when he goes to a restaurant, he's completely blind. They'll be around the table ordering off the menu, and the waitress will go to everybody. And when the waitress gets to him, and he was obviously blind, the waitress would say, "And what would you like, sir?" So they always yell, "I'm blind, I'm not deaf." That's acting illogically and not rationally in the communication context. That's a very good illustration. People that speak a different language, I've had students that spoke French and students that spoke Spanish, said that Americans are very, very good at, they think that you'll understand them better if you speak English with a French accent when you're talking to that, or English with a Spanish accent is going to help them understand what you're saying. That would be mindlessness, behaving illogically or irrationally. That's mindlessness. Mindfulness is behaving logically and rationally, listening logically and rationally in the situation. Okay, I think those are all the terms that we needed to. Let me look at the key terms at the end of the chapter. You know, the book has different terms for the same thing. Analyzing and attending, empathizing, evaluating, hearing, listening, mindful listening, mindless listening, paraphrasing. See, they use pseudo-listening instead of offensive listening. Remembering, responding, supporting, understanding. We covered everything that's on the test. You should be really in good shape for the test. Let's go over the study guide real quick. Did you not get one? And we'll turn, I'm trying to think if it will confuse you if I let you. Let's turn the study guides in, because I'm afraid it's just going to mess you up.